there's been this thing going around where it's like why narcissists like hate autistic people. And I kind of like, I have like an input on this. I actually have like an input on this. So like, I knew one of my signs that I grew up in a narcissistic family is that my grandma, who granted is also a narcissist, was always very much like targeted and scapegoated. And like, you know, people were always like talking crap about her, blaming her for stuff, never like looked at her side of the story. And granted, like, she is like off, but so were they, you know, like, so it was like, so it's like, you know, she was narcissistic, but she was like, didn't like fit in, but she also like didn't fit into the group. So she was kind of like ostracized and stuff like that. And, you know, I think in a way it was also karmic for her, because the reason that they turned out to be very narcissistic had a lot to do with her parenting, you know. But I kind of saw like there was like, you know, ever since I was a kid, I saw there was like this very much like this group dynamic where they would all huddle together and just like make fun of her and stuff like that constantly, whether she did something or not. And, you know, she was always singled out. And there was always like one or two people, you know, alongside with her, you know, occasionally. I believe that they grouped me in with her, whatever. So, you know, so that's how I figured out, like, ever since I was a kid, like, before I even learned about the term narcissism, that there was something off about my family. Because, like, you know, you have an issue with someone's problematic, you know, you can talk about I'm all about, like, because I'm very big on problem solving, I'm all about, like, talking about the issue at hand in order to work it through, but I'm not into talking about the issue at hand just to crap on someone. You know, you're just like sitting around, you're just like you're trying to ruin someone's reputation, you're just trying to tarnish their character, you're just trying to make yourself feel better by making them look bad. You know, that doesn't solve anything. And I'm not into that. You know, if I have a problem with someone, I will go up to them directly and I will talk about them, which is like an autism trait. And that's also like, that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about why narcissists usually have problems with you if you're an autistic, if you're on the autism spectrum. Like, I personally, I don't have like all of the autism traits, to be honest. Like, I've read through ADHD and autism because I have both. I relate much more to ADHD than autism, but definitely one of the autism traits that I have is I am extremely direct. You know, I don't talk behind people's backs because I talk to them. You know what I mean? If I have an issue with you, like, my sister overheard me, like, because my sister did something today, and she overheard me, like, saying to my mom, you know, she did this, and she was like, are you talking about me behind my back? And I was like, she was like, are you guys talking about me behind my back? And I was like, yes, we are. Like, oh, yes, we are. You know, like, that's how I am. Like, anything I would say behind your back, I will say to you, to your face. You know, that's how I am. You know, and it's not because I like, you know, I actually don't like fighting in conflict. Like, I'm just like, you know, I don't think that talking about something behind someone's back solves anything, essentially. You know, if you have a problem with someone, you need to talk to them, period. Like, I don't deal with people who don't communicate. So, yeah, like, that's how I am, and, like, especially, and that works for men, which is why autistic men, like, have an easier time getting along and stuff like that than autistic women, because with women are very, like, passive-aggressive, and women are very, like, you know, you can't say things directly to a woman, even if you're another woman. You have to be more delicate about it, and I have a very hard time with that, like, to be honest. Like, I just, you know, if there's something that happened, I want to talk about the issue because I want the problem to be solved. You know, that's very much, I have very linear thinking like that, you know? So that's one of the reasons that narcissists will have an issue with you. The other reason is because, you know, if you're an autistic person, you have been ostracized your entire life. You know, and it's not necessarily because you're problematic. You know, like, you'll have issues with people here and there, but the overall reason that you're consistently ostracized in group settings is because you're weird. Like, to be honest, like, you're just, like, and I totally own that up about myself. Like, you're just weird. Like, you know, you have, like, your quirks, you have, like, your specialized interests, you have, like, your little STEM things that you do. You know, I remember one time, you know, when I was in high school, like, sitting at a lunch table, because there was, like, these group of girls who were nice, and they let me sit at the table with them so I wouldn't be alone, and I caught myself, like, I didn't even realize I was doing it. I caught myself doing this, like, just, like, for no reason, And like, I was like, and then I caught myself doing that one time, and I was like, oh my gosh, how many times have I done that, you know? So, and I don't think like I do that like a lot now. I don't know, like you have like, you know, you like, my point is like, you know, you have been ostracized your whole life, like in one way or another, not because you're problematic, but because like you're just a little quirky, you're a little weird, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I honestly, like, a little tangent, like, people will like talk all about being inclusive about this, being inclusive about that, like all of these pronouns, whatever. But people aren't inclusive towards people who don't hurt anyone. They're just have their little quirks. You know, like, that's the type of inclusivity I would like to see. But anyways, so yeah, like, so one of a narcissist's main strategy, when they're at war with you or whatever, is they will try to isolate you. So, like, in one of the ways is the silent treatment. So, you know, so someone who has been kind of ostracized in social settings their entire lives most likely learned how to cope with that at a very young age. You know, I definitely learned how to cope with that at a very young age. You know, to the point that I would prefer, like, I like people a lot. Like, I'm not self-centered like that, but, you know, it's just kind of foreign to me sometimes to be in a group setting, and I would prefer being alone because that's just, like, what I'm used to. So that's kind of how I am, and I like one-on-one interactions. Like, I like talking to people, I like one-on-one, but I'm not like, you know, but whatever. Like, it does, so, you know, like, this is something that you're used to if you're an autistic person, is being ostracized in one way or another. So if a narcissist tries to do, like, the silent treatment on you, you're just like, okay, well, you know, like, what's new? Or if they, and more likely, if they try to ice you out of a group setting, like, let's say you're all kind of part of this group, and the narcissist is working very hard to get everyone to ice you out, and it works, or it's successful to some degree, you know, it doesn't bother you the way it would bother someone who's more neurotypical and isn't used to being isolated. You know, when I was in elementary school or whatever, I used to be the only person, like, who didn't have, like, a group of friends to, like, play with. And the teachers would sometimes feel bad for me and, like, ask people to play with me. And I was, like, literally the only person. And I was in, like, a huge class, you know? And I was, like, the only person who, like, didn't have, like, a group type of thing. Like, there was, like, a group or whatever, like, when I went to school and stuff, who would be, like, I always had, like, a group who was, like, nice enough that, like, they would, like, let me be around them and stuff like that. So I wasn't totally alone, but I wasn't fully integrated in that group. You know what I mean? Like, I would be very friendly with some girls one-on-one, but I wasn't, like, part of any group in particular. So that's, like, very much how it went for me. And I didn't have a problem with that. I thought that everyone was very nice. I generally got along with everyone, you know? So, like, so it's like, you know, I'm used to, like, getting along with everyone one-on-one, but not really being incorporated into the group. So, and I'm also used to being, like, the only one, like, out in, like, a setting. And this is something that's, like, you know, and I talk about grade school, like, as just, like, examples, because there's simple examples I can talk about really quick, you know, and then, like, kind of just get out of the way and, like, make a point with it. But this has, like, happened to me my whole life, like, all work situations, and I've never had a problem with it, you know? So, like, you know, so a narcissist tries to ice you out of a group setting in one way or another, you know, it's just, like, another day of the week for me. And I also talked about school settings, so I'm trying to, like, communicate how long this has happened to me. Like, this has happened to me since I was, like, 8 years old, like, that type of, younger than 8, you know, like, that type of thing. Like, I'm trying to communicate the extent to which this has been going on as well, which is why I talk about those types of examples. So, you know, like, but, so, yeah, like, and they see that this tactic doesn't work on you, because it very much works on most people. Most people are, like, devastated by it, and they become infuriated, I noticed. Like, you know, when I was, like, the last time I was given the silent treatment, I literally thought to myself, well, she can just sit on it over there, and she got, like, so mad. You know what I mean? Like, people, and I wasn't even trying to make anyone upset, but they want a reaction out of you, and you're used to being isolated. It genuinely doesn't bother you, and they get very upset by that, you know, and they're upset. And I noticed that, like, with my family that's very narcissistic, like, the root cause of them disliking me was that I was comfortable being alone, and I wasn't trying to get integrated with them. And it was, like, always, like, a double-edged sword, where if I tried to be around them, they didn't like my company because our personalities didn't mesh. One of those reasons being our personalities didn't match, but the other reason, but then they wouldn't like that I wasn't trying to